Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and we are here with our mid-season review episode. This is where we like to sort of take stock of the season so far and analyse what we need to do to bring home number 17 by year's end. And of course, we will be revisiting the depth chart, the best 22. There is so much to cover in this episode. And look, I'm very keen to get stuck in, but I do have to ask Lockie, how are you and how are you feeling at the midway point of this season? We were chatting a little bit about it before we started recording that, it's a lot different than this time last year.
So true. So true. Yeah, doing very well, mate. It's crazy to believe just how different things are. What more to say? Let's get into it. I'm keen to see how positive you are.
Yes, well, you say positive, yet we're starting at our media meltdown to kick things off. It's almost like before we get into the juiciness of the actual review itself, there has been a little bit of news, a little bit of something in the media that has required this segment to come back. Now, that is Laura Kane and the chatter from AFL about the AFL draft. Now, AFL draft will be in November at the conclusion of this year's AFL season, and they are looking more likely than not at this stage to be making changes to the father-son bidding, the academy bidding, which I just think is absolutely bizarre. Lockie, did you end up seeing much about this? Do you have much of an opinion on it at all? Because I know I'm really fiery about this, but if they are to, I know we're a little bit biased because we have the Camporelli twins in this, but do you have much of a thought around them making any changes this close to the draft?
It's true. It seems like Murphy's Law, isn't it, that something like this would happen in the year that we wouldn't want it to happen. I think it's definitely not a topic I've been as invested in the past, probably because it just hasn't been ultra relevant to us. But I have felt like the bidding system itself has seemed a bit skewed. Like, in terms of father-son, like, I think we all agree that it's a good part of the game, and we'd love to see, that go on between generations, but it seems a bit off. So I'm not opposed to changes, but the way that, I haven't seen this in as much depth as you, but it feels like not the ideal comms and rollout at this stage.
I definitely agree. I think you kind of nailed it. Like, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that clubs clearly have been planning for this year's draft and making sure for the last 2 years. And I think at least last season we saw in that draft, Carlton, and other teams, they're making different deals to get some more third rounders in. If they're trading for players, they're making sure that they've got enough to sort out their dealings in the next season. And to make changes in the year, I just think is ridiculous for clubs to give them no time to actually make a proper plan. And look, as far as them actually making the drafts and those deals happen, they're going to get the players in that they need to bring in. That's not necessarily the problem. Like, if I'm looking at Carlton right now, we will find a way to make sure the Camporelli twins come in. Like, it will be fine in that instance. The frustration for me is around, like, Laura Kane saying that they're not sure, but they're not ruling out that it will take effect this year and that it's still going to take them another 2 months to actually finalize and sort out what that looks like, giving clubs, 2-3 months to actually figure out their draft strategy heading into things. I think that that's just not enough time. And they're talking about these competitive balances and everything around that. I feel like that's making it difficult for clubs that are trying to plan for this season. So I think that's just ludicrous. And I think the comms is the big thing that you mentioned there that has probably made me the most fiery on this. It's just the way that Laura Kane said it in the interview. I think it's just the smugness of when she delivers it could happen this year. And I think Kingy goes back and says, so what's going to happen this year? Do the clubs know? And she just goes, they know, they're aware. They've been aware for 12 months. And you're like, okay, you didn't need to be so rude in your delivery of that. And I'm annoyed that no one kind of pressed her a little bit more, because there's a difference between being made aware that they may make changes and actually knowing what those changes are, Lockie, how they affect you, and when they're going to take place. Currently, clubs don't know anything. They don't know if it's going to happen, what that will look like, because they don't know. So it's just a
Yeah.
accumulation of poor, rushed, on the run decisions that the AFL seem to do for years and years, much like they change the interpretations of holding the ball mid-season. They make this rash decision. Everyone agrees, I would say, that we need to make changes to the father-son bidding, because I don't like that clubs can just, here's 7 fifth-rounders and I've got my player. But I just think everyone would also agree, if you do it in 12 months' time to give clubs a chance to plan for it, that's just the logical step. But I do understand that I'm going to carry some bias with the Camporelli twins, and I know that that's always going to be there in my anger.
Yeah. No. It's very fair. To your point about kind of changes like this happening over years and years, I don't know if it has. It feels like this year in particular has been incredibly reactive in lots of different ways, like more so than usual, which I feel like is what is like building all these things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange. I know. I'm the same. I'm trying to like take my Carlton hat off and be like, if we didn't have this in here now, would we be similarly annoyed? And I think we would be, because it just goes against kind of the logic of being able to plan around things like this.
It just doesn't seem like the smart decision, which feels like an AFL in a nutshell. But that is Meaty Meltdown. Let us know your thoughts on what you think of these proposed changes. Now, I will just caveat that by saying, look, it might not happen. We don't know, but yeah, it may, which is definitely the frustrating part. Let us know in the comments if you're on YouTube, if you are listening in audio form. Let us know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. But let's start in the reflection. It's mid-season. A lot has happened so far this year. And I want to basically jump straight into taking a look at the fixtures and the predictions that we made at the start of the year, just to see how well we're traveling compared to that. Now, Lockie, I gave us the prediction so far that at this stage, we would be 8-5. I had our losses of Brisbane away, Collingwood, Melbourne, Sydney, and Port. Well, we've done better than that. We are now 9-4. I'm definitely impressed with that. Obviously, the wins and losses have differed to where I predicted them. Where did you sort of see things at this stage?
I'm currently going through my run sheets to see what I had down at the start of the season, but I think I must have been similar to you. Scary accurate, I feel like, with your picks there. I feel like getting that Brisbane win at the start of the season just put everything into turmoil. It's like all the plans are out the window now. We're going to win the flag.
No, I definitely agree. And I think when you're looking at this, like, we tried to be somewhat conservative with this, but both of us had by the end of the season that we would be, I think it was 15 wins, 8 losses. That was roughly, I think, what we both had around that mark. And for us to be one more positive on that so far is just, it's so good that we are not only where we saw ourselves, which in previous years has never seemed to be that way. We've actually bettered it by 1. And like you say, that getting that Brisbane win definitely started things in that strong position. It almost allows you to lose that game against Adelaide. We knew we were going to lose one that we probably shouldn't. That seems to be it. To lose against Collingwood, I guess I predicted that there at that stage. And then, you lose against Sydney, you can kind of cop that. The Geelong one, I guess it is what it is at this stage, but for us to still get that win against Port Adelaide, where I probably didn't see us, and I assume you would have been the same it's an away game. You're probably not going to win one of those. For us to sort that out and find the win in another place is just clearly a massive positive. And now I kind of want to have the exercise to see, with us being 9-4, and looking at the rest of the season, where you kind of see the rest of it. So we've got Geelong, Richmond, GWS away, Western Bulldogs, North, Port, Collingwood, Hawthorn, West Coast, St Kilda. How many wins are you giving us out of those there, Lockie?
Oh, mate, it's a crazy game, isn't it? It's so hard to pick these ones. Like, I feel like in terms of like a principle sense, I feel like generally if we play a quality team twice, we like to say that, fair chance we'll go 1-1. So hopefully we'll be able to knock Geelong off. But maybe the Giants up there could be a bit of a challenge. I'm doing this mental arithmetic in my head while you tell me yours.
No, mate, go for it. Because originally I had us 7 wins out of that, which off my original prediction would have gotten us to 15-8. With our current predicament, that gets us to 16 wins and 7 losses. But looking at that now and reevaluating it, I've been able to find an extra win. I've got us winning 8 because I think
That
we
feels
beat
right.
Geelong. I think we beat Geelong. We lost to them the first time, which, like you say, we hope to get that turn the other way. I think we beat Richmond. GWS away. I'm happy to, if you lose any game out of it, I'll cop that one. I think we beat the Doggies, North, Port. People will hate this. I've given us the loss against Collingwood. I weirdly have a dumb feeling and a dumb prediction maybe where we lose both of the games against Collingwood in season, face them in finals and knock them off. I don't know why I've felt like that, but that's where I'm giving our only other loss because I think then Hawthorn, West Coast, and St Kilda, I would say that they're all wins, Lockie. How are you looking at it when you're seeing this? Do you feel very Mick Malthouse-esque thinking I can't see where we lose?
Good reference. Yeah, I generally agree. I think, I want to be optimistic and give us the Collingwood win. And then, like I kind of mentioned before, I feel like Port, even though it's in Melbourne, feels like a danger one. The only other one there that kind of stands out is maybe the Dogs at Marvel. That feels like the scariest one to me there.
Or is it St Kilda because we've decided to just rest the team for some reason? Just don't worry about it, boys. We've sold top 2. We're in. Don't even worry about it. But no, I think
potentially
the Dogs is probably that other one that, they're in some decent nick at the moment. It's Marvel they always seem to play well at. And I think the positive part about this reflection and looking at the future is just the confidence. Previous seasons, looking at these games, you start to get nervous and you think, okay, we probably lose that one somehow. Or I'm trying to find the ones that I've got us winning because I'm biased, but we probably lose. So how level-headed am I getting? But I think this season so far, we've probably proven that we are that team that, for the most part, when at least very healthy, put us up against anyone, and we're winning the games we should be winning, and we are able to knock off some of those better teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think with these predictions and this formula, I guess, 10 games, you can't really see a world to me where we win 9 or 10. That feels far-fetched. But also, if we go 5-5, that also feels that just doesn't feel possible to me. So I think we get ourselves in that range and, man, we're in that top 4 hunt like we hoped.
Yeah, can really only afford to lose 3 max if we want to make top 4.
Yeah,
got us losing 2. I think that puts us in a perfect position. Last thing I'll just touch on when looking at this, we often do our little 3-round kind of build up. We've got Geelong, we've got Richmond, and we've got GWS away. What is your acceptable win-loss out of those 3?
Yeah, my God, I feel like we just run this back almost any time. It just almost always feels like it's 2 and 3. I mean, a loss against Richmond would be diabolical for our season, for sure. So if we can, make sure that we get one over the line against Geelong and Giants, I think that'd be great. Do I see a world where we win all 3? 100%.
Yeah. I'd say that if you win all 3, you're really just, again, adding to that premiership credentials, like the last 3 games when you're beating Gold Coast, Port away, and then Essendon. You're just starting to build that resume. 3-0 definitely does that off the bye. If you lose 1, knowing that you are playing good teams like Geelong and GWS away, I think you can cop that. And then, like we've said, looking at the rest of the fixtures, then you just can't really afford to lose too many others. But I absolutely back us in with that. So while we are reflecting on the wider season, Lockie, what have you learned so far this year? Because looking back 12 months ago, it felt like we had everything to learn. We were sitting bottom 4. We had just got the 1 win, I think, over Gold Coast to give us the tiniest bit of positivity headed into the bye. And I remember vividly us saying, we're absolutely idiots for thinking this, but, like crazy things have happened. There's still a chance that we somehow turn it around. It's ridiculous. It probably won't happen, but why not believe? And it ended up happening. We made finals, but we've been a lot better this year. So what little things have you learned a few games in?
It's an interesting point. I kind of want to speak more to that. Like, even just in a broader AFL sense, I think this season has shown even further that it is so hard to get a proper read on a team's form. Like, I think about like Geelong when we came up against them, and it genuinely seemed like they were not going to lose a game this entire season, and everybody felt like that. Collingwood at the start of the season, it felt like everyone was going to write them off. And now teams that are in the same position that we were last year, people seeming to forget what happened to us last year. And it's like, no, there's no way they can come back. So I feel like I need to like take the moment to ground myself and be like, things are looking so good for us. And we've just done those predictions. But I guess a learning is literally how quickly everything can change. And there's a possibility that we're sitting here in 2 weeks and everything's changed for the worse. So it's so hard to get a proper read on form, I think. And it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, I feel as if the way that we've lived out football over the last few years has led to this little bit of maturity where we've all kind of grown and we're taking things a lot more week to week, even though we've just gone through a bit of the fixture and trying to predict things. It's very much try not to get too high, try not to get too low, because you never know what can happen. We saw last year just the turnaround that win them, enjoy them, then move on to the next one. You lose, okay, anything can change next week, and just trying to wait until you're at the point where you can start, getting stressed or starting to truly think about, okay, we're a real chance for the flag now because we've done it. We're mid-season. We are nowhere near finals just yet. We've put ourselves in a spot where it feels like we're starting to break away into that top 4, even though things are so tight right now.
Yeah.
And that's what makes those next few rounds so important, that if we can be one of those teams that start to join Sydney higher up the ladder, rather than it's the win one, lose one, and you start to just be with the rest of the pack.
Yeah.
I think that's a massive learning, and I absolutely love that from you. And I think that while you have said that, mine that I probably reflecting on is that we just currently are as good as I think we are. And we've shown that in multiple moments this season, our best still matches it with the best. And that even when we haven't been amazing and we have lost games, our worst seems to be a big step up from last year. We lose to Collingwood we lose to Geelong in a game that we had chances. We lose to Adelaide. We were there with a good chance to win. Really only the Sydney game this season has been the one that we just weren't in it after the first 10 minutes where we put a few goals on. So I think that that level of consistency that we've been after for quite a while seems to be there. And even saying that, we still probably haven't reached our peak, which is maybe where I'm starting to be very positive on where I am seeing things so far.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Like I tried to say grounded in my last point, I agree with everything you said there. I think as we were previewing this season, I think we had the faith, but we didn't have the full-on evidence, because you just had to look back to last year and be like, yeah, we had an unbelievable run in the back half of the season, but what on earth was that before the bye? So a lot of people weren't convinced on us. And I think, I'm actually not even going to put that sentence out in the universe. I'm going to put that in the back because I don't want any of that out there. But I'm just feeling so confident right now in who we are, like you said. And the players, Vossi, complete faith in them all.
Yeah, we've been able to put in the work and give ourselves the best platform to jump off in the rest of the season. Feels like we did that a little bit in, 2022? But even when we were in that position and things obviously fall off, we don't make finals, there wasn't that level of confidence and belief that we were a bona fide finals team. We were really just riding that momentum. Feels a lot more solidified. at this stage. And I think that goes to the determination that you kind of see within this group. Was there anything else that you've learned so far this year?
Yeah. No, nothing else big comes to mind. I've got some other thoughts on other stuff.
Too easy. I'll jump in with my last one. And that was just
Do it.
that I think the coaching group has shown that they have a few more tricks up their sleeve than we maybe
was going to mention that.
Because, it's probably been the one thing that, and maybe this is in that next one, so we can kind of pivot to that in the what has surprised you this year, because they have made some changes, which we haven't seen in recent years. A lot of the times we've said, what's that plan B when things aren't going right? How are we just going to stick to the same things, stick to the same players, or are we going to evolve this year? Well, that contested, strong brand of footy last year. What are we changing? How are we evolving this year? So what are those kind of changes that you've seen? And is it those that have surprised you so far, Lockie?
Yeah, 100% right. It's funny because we were even sitting here a month ago and questioning those things. I remember, which makes it all the more sweeter. And then I think from a personnel perspective, which I guess ties into like the most improved discussion, so I won't go too much into that. But they're the things that have really surprised me. Like Chin Cotter didn't feel like someone that was to me, didn't feel like he was going to play a massive role in our season. And obviously he has. Someone like TDK at the start of the year, it didn't feel to me like even he would be so pivotal. Just it kind of felt like he was a bit of a cog in between the rucks, in between the forwards. And so that has so completely surprised me as well. So we knew that this would happen, but I feel like if I take us back to our predictions about like who are going to be the ones to watch, who are going to be the ones to break out, we just didn't have a lot of these guys in mind.
No, 100%. Yeah, Chincotta's been the big one over the last month, coming in as that tagger. And even when he was playing that small defender role on the best small forwards in the competition, which weirdly we've almost all forgotten. And it was only, 3 games ago that he was doing that. He has played a massive role, and we'll get to it in our best 22. I'm excited to see if he's still snuck into yours at the moment. But he is a guy that we've created a role. The coaches have seen something that they've liked. They've tried something different that we haven't seen, and it's worked. And we've seen Zach Williams forward. I think that's something that's definitely surprised me, and a whole new role change for him. And it seems to be working right now. These are those little things that it feels like they're the difference from us being that middle of the road finals team, which is a good thing, but you want to be that team really top 4, top 2 that everyone says they're not just making up the numbers every year. They can win it every single year. And to have that ability to move some magnets around and even to go further on the coaches thing, when we were having that discussion saying, when have we out-coached another team? I think you've seen now over the last month, a fair few of those games felt like in stages against Port, we had structured up smartly. And then Essendon, they wanted to go fast. They wanted a bit of chaos and run. We were just holding the ball up, slowing things down when we needed to. These are little things that it seems stupid to question the coaches, but I wasn't sure that they were smart enough or had the strategy to truly do it. Seemed as if we were quite reliant on the guys we had out on the field rather than the structure. But it feels like we're moving towards it all being pre-planned, which is great to see.
Which again just felt like one of the missing pieces of the puzzle, I feel like, at the end of last season. So, God damn it, it's so hard not to be optimistic for this back half.
Absolutely. Has anything else surprised you so far?
I'm just looking back at our I guess predictions and hot takes and those kind of things from the start of the year. And I think one of the, I guess, when we talked about what we need to do to take the next step, we talked a bit about like the injuries and them not playing a big role. And it feels like in the first half of this season, we have had one of the worst injury runs across the league. So I think it's potentially surprising if you saw what the injury list looked like over this first start of the season. it would be surprising to say that we'd be sitting second on the ladder.
Mm. Yeah, no, that is an interesting perspective. I probably haven't thought about it that way at all. I've definitely thought about the injuries and how that's impacted some of us and how important that is getting that right for the back half of the season. But I maybe haven't reflected of it positively when judging who's been out there, how the coaches have gotten around that and made us be so determined out on the field to, have that next man up mentality that we did see last season that worked so well. And it's annoying that we have to pull that lever, but to know that they have that, they're so resilient, this group, and they find different ways to do it, different ways to win. I think that that's ridiculously positive. And I mean, the only other thing I had written down for what has surprised me is kind of quite negative, but he's someone that we had quite high. We spoke highly of in preseason that probably hasn't hit the heights we expected. And that's just, I guess, Orazio Fantasia isn't as good as I thought he was going to be. And that small forward position maybe hasn't been locked down as much as we expected, which is probably that area for improvement, which is somewhat a good thing if you want to look at that there is still growth for us. But it's kind of a bit disappointing that we haven't really nailed down our small forwards right now.
It's true. I remember saying this exact thing when we talked about the under the pump, and it was those four smalls, and we're here at the mid-season, and what's your hierarchy? Like, I almost feel like every Carlton fan would have a different combination of how you would look at those four guys right now. Motlop hasn't been able to get out there in the ones. That's definitely surprising.
Yeah, well, I'm scared for my hot take when we revisit that at year's end, because one of mine was, I reckon, all those smalls kicking an absolute AFL record.
I do.
Goals in a season, which has just gone to shit, Lockie. It does not look good.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, you were very bold in
that. What I will say, you agreed with me, which I thought I was going to get ripped to shreds. So probably one of us should have been.
You presented a lot of logic. You presented a lot of. We didn't have Zach Williams in the equation. That's what's
maybe I'll move some figures around and see how it works out with Zach Williams down there. But let's get positive. Let's talk about it, Lockie. And I want everyone who's watching this on YouTube right now to give me their answer to this in the comments. If you're listening in audio form at Navy Blue Corner on the socials, give us a DM or tweet at us. What's been the best win or the best moment so far this season? I'm hoping that what we say right now isn't going to be the same one at year's end. So that's why I wanted to give this a bit of distance right now.
That's a really good way to put it. I like reflecting on the individual moments like this. I just can't go past opening round, which is kind of sad because it is the furthest thing from now. But, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but as I'm looking at my hot predictions, I did say that we were going to win that game. But did I really deep down believe? I think a lot of us felt like it was just going to be an impossible task to go up there, following on from the prelim final, go to the exact same situation, be down by 50 points, whatever it was, and come over the line. I feel like we even though Brisbane hasn't been the same Brisbane as last year, I can't go past that moment.
Yeah, that was mine. And it was very much around Harry Mackay because of everything. I mean, you forget about it, but pre-season, there was so much worry about, is he just broken? Are we going to get to a stage throughout the year where we drop him because he can't kick a goal because he's so devoid of confidence in front of goal? And for him to have that moment, opening round, to win the game, all the pressure, the most pressure ever on a kick, so close to the last time he's had all those failures. It was like the footy gods were writing the script for him, and for him to nail that, for everyone to get around him in that way, it's now just not a conversation that we're having, worrying about, oh, Harry Mackay, I'm so nervous when he gets the ball in front of goal. Like, no one thinks about that anymore. So I think that just on a individual moment for Harry, and then what that means for the wider Carlton season, I just think is massive. And that's still probably the happiest I've been this year, just for him more than anything else.
So true. God, it feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? That the whole, all the narratives around him and that kind of thing, which is great. I think the only like other little, I guess, game or part of a game that I'll mention would probably be the fourth against Port.
Yeah.
That felt like quite a. That felt like another, like if the Brisbane game was kind of like a step in the right direction, coming over the top of them in a dominant fourth in
Mm.
Adelaide. Like you said, that was a game that you had down as a loss, and I would have too. To do that so emphatically, I think that'd be up there as well.
God, look how aligned we are. I had written again, I've gone the individual part. You're looking at this too much like a lovely team member. I've just gone Paddy Cripps kicking 2 goals in
Yeah,
the last quarter. So I absolutely love
that's
that.
fair.
But while we are positive, we have to get negative. We have to look at the worst loss, the worst moment this year, because hopefully these can be things
Mm.
that we overcome in the second half of the season. Do you have anything that when you're reflecting back, you think was maybe the lowest moment of 2024?
Yeah, it may. I'm interested to hear how you feel about this because it may seem too simple, but I think the Sydney game is the lowest point because, as we know, with like the unpredictability of the game, games like Adelaide, even though I was filthy after that, it's so many like micro moments that go into that, like obviously we could have just come away with that game. And then it would have been a game that we wouldn't have even thought about until now. But just the fact that that Sydney game, even though they're clearly the best team, and even though it was in Sydney, we just were just not in it for so long. So I haven't felt that kind of like defeat in a third quarter of
Mm.
a game. It feels like in so long. So I think that would be it for me.
Mm. It was probably that run where we, had lost Geelong, Collingwood, had that weird game against Melbourne where we held on for dear life. Then you
Yeah,
lose to Sydney. You have all those injuries around it. It does feel as if it's a bit of a turning point in the season. Do we falter and end up just fighting for finals or being a team that's well outside the eight? Or are we going
yeah,
to fight back and be that top four battling team? And so I think for us again to turn it around and look at it now as a maybe not a positive moment, but something that we can use as motivation, I think is probably the best way to look at it.
yep,
I agree. It probably was our lowest part this year, but at least compared to last season, I think the difference in lows is massive. If that's our bad patch for the year, I think
yep.
that's a massive step in the right direction. And yeah, it kind of, with Sydney running away with it so much at the moment, they look so much better than any other
At the
team in the
moment,
competition right now, where things
good
sit.
call.
Long way to go.
Good
But
call.
you just want to be, if you do lose, you lose by 10 or you lose by 15, and you think, okay, we're
Yeah,
close to
exactly.
them. If we just get healthy, if we just get into form, maybe it's in Melbourne, then you think that we're a good chance. But when you are so far away from that in-form number one seed, yeah, that is probably the lowest. I think what I had written down wasn't necessarily a game because
Yep.
I feel like we've bounced back from things quite well this season. I've just written down and said, I think the overall injuries that we've copped this year, which goes to your earlier point, where
Yeah.
we kind of haven't gotten over that. And I know we've talked this to death, but the same players are still getting injured. Other
Yep.
injuries are happening, and we just can't seem to get our best team out there for long enough. And that's just been really the big disappointment, that you know how important it is for us to stay healthy and get the right players out there. Just praying that we can get that done by the end of the year.
You're very right. I think if I'm going to now try and be positive on this, at least it hasn't been, apart from I guess Wiedering, it hasn't been like the really irreplaceable guys. I feel
Mm.
it makes it extra disappointing. I guess that it is the same culprits, the guys that in the off season last year we were like, I don't know, do we keep giving them another chance or not? We inevitably do, and then it doesn't get repaid. But I guess so. Yeah, the positive is that in the preseason I had no big injuries to the irreplaceable
Mm.
personnel, like Harry and Charlie, like Cripper, those kind of guys. At least we've been able to get them on the
Mm.
park.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. And when looking at the injuries, I'm glad to a point that we've found ways to evolve around it again. That next man up, we're finding
It's
different
true.
roles for Chincotta to go in there, Williams in the forward line. We've kind of, apart from probably Wiedering and McGovern, they've been probably the hardest to find an alternative for. It seems like all the other injuries, other guys have been able to step up and play certain roles. So I think that is definitely something to be very positive on in how we've handled it.
Yeah, I think which brings me to like another one of those worst moments, which was coming off that Brisbane win and being like, oh, we're going to win the flag now, and knowing that Doherty wasn't going to be a part of it, like that was definitely one of those moments where it just felt extra cruel as well.
Yeah, no Doc, no Sauce, probably the two heart and soul guys. You just want to have them there.
True.
Very disappointing, but going back more positive, hopefully. We'll find out what Lockie's response is with this. How would you grade or rate the season so far? 13 or so games in, second on the ladder. When we played last, not looking at the ladder now, this week doesn't seem to count because we're not out there. 9-4. What's your grading, Lockie?
I've been going back and forth on these two grades this morning, but I think I have to give it an A. I think an A+. Start of the season would have been maybe a couple extra wins. It's hard because second on the ladder sounds so incredible, but we were out of the 8 2 weeks ago. Like it can change so quickly that I don't want to get too bought into that. I think an A. We've surpassed my expectations for this part of the year.
Yeah. Now, I think mine probably, now that you say that, mine should be an A. I wrote down B+.
That's what I had originally as well.
Simply because I wasn't sure that our best has been at our best, if that makes any sense. When you're saying that we've probably been better than you expected, then we should be an A. But weirdly, even though we've got the wins, we've got the results, I think the 4-quarter performances of burying teams and just really showing that week in, week out, we're number one. I maybe haven't seen that as much. Maybe if you absolutely run over Melbourne, don't have that kind of performance, and maybe Frio's a little bit of a larger win, then I'm more impressed. But I don't know, B + A, either one. We're in a good spot, but it's the mid-season. It's all about what we do from here.
It's true.
But I am happy that we're in a lot better position than last year. That is for sure. Now, we have been talking about the season so far, but one thing we need to get a little bit of an update on, Lockie, is the votes. Every single week, we give our 3-2-1. Lockie has thrown a spanner into the works by revolutionizing the voting system and how we do this. 3 obviously has always gone to the best on. 2, however, 2 votes has gone to someone that we think has gone above and beyond their role each and every week and what we expect of them. 1 has been to whoever you want it to be. My worry was going to be that with this, are we going to see the 3 votes change so much and then maybe a certain role player or something keeps getting the 2 and maybe someone that shouldn't be our number 1 player ends up winning it? That was a concern. But let's go through a bit of an update. I'll give you, it's meant to be the top 10, Lockie, but currently there are 4 men tied in the 10th position on 4 votes. That's how tied it is.
Beautiful.
Fogarty, McGovern, Chincotta, and Pitternet all in 10th position, tied on 4 votes. In 9th on 5 is George Hewitt. Coming in at number 8 on 6 votes, Zach Williams, who has pretty much got all those votes in the forward line. He is on fire at the moment. Maybe he's going to make a massive run in the second half of this season. In number 7 on 9 votes, having missed half the season, it's Sammy Walsh. He doesn't need to play every single game. He'll still find a way in the top 10. In number 6, which probably goes to show you how important it is to really get those 2 votes. And I think this guy, regardless, deserves his position here with 10 votes. It's Elijah Hollins, who
love it.
His role this season has been impressive. Absolutely love everything we've seen from him. Now the top 5 in 5th position, 11 votes, Nick Newman, Mr. Consistent, Mr. Reliable. Then we have a tie in 3rd spot on 18 votes. A little bit of a gap there between 3 and 5. It is De Koning and Harry Mackay. Now, you think those two are very tied in 3rd. Well, there's only 1 vote separating them in 2nd. With 19 votes, it is Jacob Wiedering. Now, the number one man, you know who it
Who
is
would
'cause
have
I haven't
thought?
said his name yet, but the gap is probably the exciting thing here, which I kind of like in reflection because you want to reward the 3 votes. You get a 3. That is
Exactly.
because you are clearly the best. And we're seeing that because Wiedering was in number 2 on 19. Leading is Paddy Cripps on 30 votes. He's absolutely
Gee
running away
whiz.
with it. And he's had some season, a Brownlow fancy right now. How
Crazy.
are you seeing the votes so far on that, Lockie?
Yep.
Is there anyone that surprises you? Do you like the new system? How are you seeing it?
I stand by the system for now, pending review at the end of the year for sure. I like giving some of the guys a bit of an opportunity. But the thing to your point about the role player is, Elijah Hollands now, it's going to be harder for him, I think, to get the 2 because the floor has been raised on what we expect of him. So it presents other opportunities. But Cripper, Jesus, there's no way he could win another Brownlow, is there? That would be absolutely insane for his legacy. A Brownlow and a Premiership captain in the same year? Crazy.
Maybe even a norm. Who knows?
Maybe even.
I mean, I do really like this system because I think it really rewards the best on, and then you're allowing votes to go to these role players that really their consistency, like a Nick Newman, like an Elijah Hollands, that maybe they'd miss out in previous seasons. They're on the leaderboard now. So let us know what you think of the votes and who is your best player so far in the midway point. Drop that in the comments. Always keen to know. Now, to kind of round out the reflection time, this is something we've done a little bit in previous years. You know, I love some stats. So let's have a look at them to see how we're tracking and anything that does need to improve. So bringing this up for you all right now. Try and make this a little bit bigger so we can see this for you. Now, having a look just firstly at the games played, the positions on the ladder. Now, so far, we all know 13 games, 9 and 4, percentage of 109.8 in second position. Midway point last year, we had played an extra game, 5 wins, 1 draw, 8 losses, percentage of 98.1. We were 15th on the ladder. Very, very poor. Then to round things out at the end of the season, we got 23 games, 13, 1 and 9. Percentage a little bit higher than it is at the moment, 113.3. Finished in 5th. Now, I know we went on a ridiculous run last season, but if we can just stay consistent, you got to believe we're doing better than 5th by the end of the year. But the big important thing is to look at the other stats. And this is quite interesting. Gets a bit of a reflection. So I've tried to look at what I think are some of the key stats for us in how we play. So looking at the contested possessions, last year, midway point, we were ranked 6th in the AFL. By the end of the season, we got that up to 3rd. Right now, we're number 1. We are the number 1 contested possession side in the AFL, which goes towards that pressure and contest, at least the contested side of things. Uncontested possessions, midway through last year, we were 1st. That dropped down to 5th. I know we're that very possession-based slow team. At the moment, that's 8th, which probably goes to show just how we are playing. I don't think that 8th is a bad thing. Maybe that does need to go up a little bit, but I think we're starting to see an evolution on how we play and how we get our possessions. And I think that balance is a lot better. Getting your hands on the pill first, the uncontested side can sort itself out. Looking at marks, this is maybe a bit of an area of improvement because last year, mid-season, we were 1st for marks and that ended up being 5th. Right now, we're 7th. So we're not generating as many marks around the ground. Interestingly, we talk a lot about our key forwards, getting the ball into them, getting the space inside 50, the 2 best key forwards in the game. Well, last year, mid-season, 6th for marks inside 50, ended up being 10th. Well, we're 9th at the moment. This is an area I still think can improve. Get the ball in there faster, cleaner, because I want to be top 3 for marks inside 50. That's where I see us being with the cattle we've got. Hopefully, we can get there by the end. And now I want to look at clearances. Center clearances last year, 7th mid-season, ended up being 5th. We're 1st for center clearances. which I think is massive. Again, that contested side, getting hands on the footy first. And we are still getting some decent scores from that. And then stoppage clearances. This is probably the big jump because last year we were last in the competition. Eventually got it up to 15th by year's end. We're now 7th. So I think there's, again, still scope for this to improve to get into that top 5. But for us to go from that bottom half of the table last year and getting stoppage clearance winning up to 7th, I think clearly shows that there's been some evolution in the way we play. And again, we talked about the contested side of the game. We want to bring the contest. We've been talking about pressure. Look at these stats from last season, Lockie. Mid-season tackles, 12th. End of the year, 9th. Right now, 3rd. And we often say the tackle count's an interesting stat because it doesn't always mean everything if you're winning the ball. Well, we're winning the ball and we're laying tackles. And then right now, we're the first team in the competition for tackles inside 50. Last year, mid-season, 14th. Ended up being 12th. The pressure and what we're applying in the right key areas has clearly grown and is really exciting. Those things are what I'm loving out of this. And I didn't happen to get the stats last season, so apologies on this, but it's going to be one I want to track now that we're a bit more of a turnover side. Scoring from the defensive half is we're ranked 3rd for rebound inside 50s, which last year we definitely struggled to move the ball quite a lot, particularly in the midway point. For us to now be able to seem as if that's a strength of ours, being the 3rd best at it. What are you taking from seeing these stats and kind of comparing them to last season?
It's incredibly positive, this picture. I mean, for me, it's just questions around the whys, I guess. Like the stoppage clearance difference there to me. Like, I'm interested to understand why that is so significant. And I like your call out about marks inside 50 as well. Like, yeah, if we can find a way to get that even further improved, which means Charlie, Harry, hopefully Martin, these guys are having, uncontested shots on goal more often, like that will just put us in even further great position.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And it's interesting to know what needs to happen to get the stoppage clearances up, but it'll be interesting to maybe delve into these a little bit more. And because you can throw out stats like this all you want, like I have, and say we're 1st in this, we're 7th in this. But what I love hearing from Pommy all the time is that proven to actually lead to anything? If you're 1st in this stat, does that mean you win the flag? And that's where I want to delve in past this. But it was more just to see how the changes in so many of those stats for me, particularly around the tackles and the pressure from where we were last season, shows that we're getting a lot closer towards what Michael Voss has been asking of these guys, and we're seeing it result in scores now. That's definitely where I'm taking those positives from.
I love that call out, and I completely agree. I'm so in Pommy's corner when he talks about those kind of things, because a lot of these stats that I feel like have just been part of the game ever since, like how often is inside 50s, for example, looked at as an indicator of success within a game. With so rarely with caveats by, commentary and those kind of things. So yeah, there's definitely reframing that could happen, I think, around these stats and their importance. So it's a good exercise.
Absolutely. So now that we've done that, let's go to a bit more fun, Lockie. This is the bit that everyone absolutely loves, and that is talking about the list, talking about a depth chart, talking about a best 22 or a best 23 like it is these days. So we're going to jump in and have a look at what the depth chart was at the start of the year, and we're going to make some changes to that, Lockie. So let's take a look at this. Now, looking at the key defense, again, this is all going to be, if you're listening in audio form on the podcast, this is quite visual. It makes it a lot easier if you're on our own YouTube channel, Navy Blue Corner. Links are going to be in the description, in the show notes. If you're a visual person like myself and want to see this, it will be on your screen now if you're watching on YouTube. So I think when you're looking at the key defenders and ranking these players, now, if you're wondering what all these colors are, there'll be a key as well on your screen that'll indicate that green is best 23, yellow is best 30, which is probably the guys that are really fighting to play each and every week. And then orange is those further depth players that if there's injuries, they're kind of stepping into it. We're not expecting them to need to play if everyone else is healthy. So key defenders, we've got Wiedering, McGovern, and Kemp as those starters. Marchbank was probably the next one ahead of Young, Durden, and Dom. Has any of that changed for you right now?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I feel very good about that.
I reckon, weirdly, the only thing which is maybe really negative is I'd probably have Marchbank not even in the yellow. He is really with a guy like Lewis Young, a guy like Durden. Not sure if that would necessarily change anything else. It's really more for show of position, but Marchbank's probably still the next one in out of those, but I'd say it's a lot tighter now than before. So we'll keep that. Now, defenders. Sard, Newman, Zach Williams, and Jordan Boyd were the locks. You had Chincotta as the next, and then Cowan, Wilson, Carroll, and Monahan. Any changes in this position? Because I think one player might not even be in here anymore.
We didn't see this coming, did we? The Cowan rise in 2024, which was made possible by Williams making way.
Yeah. So we'll both say you reckon Sard's still number one?
Yeah.
Newman number two?
Agree.
Does Boyd move into number three?
Yeah, I think so.
And where are you having your next? Does Cowan immediately jump? Are you still throwing Chincotta into this position? Very interested to know where you want this depth chart to go.
Yeah, I don't want to be a slave to the present, but I think it has to be a Cowan for me.
Okay, so Cowan jumps into the start. Now, are you playing Chincotta in this role, or is he now a midfielder for you?
That's such a hard question. I don't think that there's really much way of knowing how he's going to play out the rest of this season, to be honest. I think it very much might be a week-by-week kind of scenario. I guess you could... there's no way of knowing.
Yeah, okay, so I guess we're just going to play the rest of them and kill a couple of defensive spots, which will be interesting.
I guess
we'll see how that plays out for the rest. The rucks. We had De Koning and Pitternet in the best 22-23. De Koning's still our number one, so at least we've got that right. And we know Murkov and O'Keefe are in the lower part. Does Pitt drop out of your 23?
I think he's got to be a yellow.
Okay, he starts as a yellow. We'll see how that goes by the rest. We'll have to add it up and maybe he gets elevated, but we'll keep him there. Now, we're still throwing in injured players into this. So I want to know if anyone's overtaken that. You've got Walsh, Cripps, Chera, Doc, Hewitt. Kennedy was the next in the yellow, and then Carroll a step below. How are you ranking the mids, Lockie?
Wow. It feels basically the same, I would say. Maybe you put the skip into number one.
I think Cripper goes number one. I reckon Walshy 2. Chera still stays in 3. Doc, Hewitt stay where they are.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think if all healthy, I think I'd probably be picking Docky before Hewitt still.
Yeah. Now, the interesting part here is, do we just leave Chincotta for now, or do we throw him in as a midfielder?
I don't have the answers.
I'm going to tentatively... I'm going to do this. I am going to go... He's still best 30. He's maybe... do you reckon above or below Kennedy?
I think we'd be picking him above Kennedy, personally. Okay. I think this... Even though it's still a reasonably small sample size, I think the tagging is just... It's working too well.
Yep. Okay. I very much like that. Are you happy with Akers, Hollands, and then Binns still not being best 30?
Yeah. I guess we hoped that Binns was maybe going to push himself into a yellow at this stage, but still unsighted.
Now, this will be interesting. The general forwards, the half forwards, it was Martin, Cottrell, and Fogarty, best 23. Hollands, Cunningham, Silvani rounding out the top 30, and Ashton Moyer being a bit of a depth play. Rate these for me now.
I feel like if I take myself back to this time at the start of the season, I feel like maybe I'll give myself that I was a bit more bullish on Kemp than you potentially. You were definitely more bullish on Elijah Hollands than I was. So I'm going to give you that. And he's probably, is he number one out of this group now?
Look, I don't know if I'm going too bold by saying Fogarty's number one, just because it seems he's so important to how we play.
I don't mind
that. I know there's that slightly flawed win-loss record with him, but I don't know. Would you put him above Elijah? I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go Elijah number one, just because I think adding a bit more in the midfield gives him a little bit more leeway, kicking a bit more snags. Happy to go with that. And then who rounds out your three at the moment?
Wow. You might find this unpopular. I think it probably is still Martin. You're fully healthy. And I'm happy for it to be Cottrell. Like, I think we're splitting hairs and it's completely different. But I think with the ascendancy of Hollands and Fogg still being so important, I think Martin's still just there.
Okay. We'll let that go for the moment. Now, I think somehow from not playing, Silvani goes above Cunningham at the moment.
Love that for him.
And then, I think unfortunately we haven't seen Ashton, so he's probably still there. Just key forwards is the same.
No changes.
Charlie, Harry. Small forwards, we've got some changes to do, Lockie. Motlop and Fantasia with this 23. Wow. Then you had always in the top 30, Durden as the depth. How are you now seeing the small forwards play out?
I guess it depends how you look at this. Right now, like next week, it's always for me I guess Zach Williams is the top.
Oh, we've forgotten Zach Williams. Yes. He wouldn't have been on the list at all. Thank God you remembered. Zach Williams, number one. Always on Motlop. I think I still have Motlop, which is really mean on Matty always.
Me too.
I know we haven't seen anything really of him, but I don't know if we're playing that game that we normally do for the best 22, 23. If my life is riding on Carlton winning a game of footy and I'm picking the team, I'm weirdly going Motlop. And that's very stiff, but I think that's how we're seeing it. And then, I think Durden, and then after him is unfortunately Fantasia.
Yeah.
And now we've got to do some maths, Lockie. So I'm going to need you to talk about I'm going to need you to pad for time. I'm going to need you to talk about
happy to do that.
The list and just what these changes have meant so far, and maybe
go ahead
where else we need some improvement while I try to count and see who we still need to add to this team.
Yeah, I guess I'll just mention the Fantasia thing while you do this math. I mean, we, as you and I always do, we are optimistic and positive, and we hope for the best from what we're going to get from Fantasia. At the end of the day, we got to be realistic and say that he was basically the last player added to our list. We're taking a punt on it. And I guess he's been given a good opportunity because nobody else has been knocking the door down. It's a shame that Motlop hasn't been healthy. And then since he's come back to the VFL, he hasn't lit the world on fire. Durden equally hasn't been knocking the door down. And then always has just been a staple in the team. I think that maybe one of the frustrating parts is the fact that Williams, in this kind of there isn't really a spot for him in the back line and he's not in amazing form. Let's try him somewhere else. And he's just completely excelled so far above any of these other guys is I guess, a positive thing and also a bit of a negative, I guess, on the smalls.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with all of that.
How'd your math go?
Well, hopefully very good. Someone will pull me up on it, I'm sure. But from my beautiful not even multiplication, a simple addition. This is how bad I'm with maths. We have exactly 30 players in the green and yellow.
Yep.
But we've only got 22 greens. That means we can upgrade one of these best 30s into a best 23s. I am going to throw three names out there for you. Lockie, you get the final decision with this. I'm throwing out Pitternet as the second ruck. I'm throwing out Chincotta as a potential tagger, added backline depth, or is it Matty Cottrell?
Yeah, my God. It's definitely not Pitt for me. If we're talking about this one game for your life kind of scenario. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel right having Chincotta in yellow because I think in terms of our structure, he right now it's leading to so much of our wins. So based on that logic, I have to elevate him, even though it's so incredibly stiff on our man Matty.
Easy. We'll
And
add
he is
our
the
man
and he is
into
the
that.
perfect sub.
Yes. No, I think so. And he works well, versatile, adds to the half forwards, and can play a bit of wing if you need him to. So that's our depth chart. Let us know if you agree, disagree, because if you don't think someone is in that best 23 that should be, let us know. I want to know all these different changes because we've made some big moves in particularly those small forwards, and we've moved Zach Williams as
Yeah.
a small forward. Do you agree? Do you not? Give us all your reasons as well. Absolutely. Love that little exercise to see where things are. But now, Lockie, we've got to reveal best 23s and see if there's any changes on this from this time last year. So, last season, the start of the season, we gave our best 23s. Everyone fit, everyone healthy. They're on screen now. The main differences that we had at the start of the year, you had Kemp over Marchbank. Well and truly am I happy to admit that you're correct with that one. You also had Always over Fantasia. Happy to say you're correct, and my opinion should never be valid on this show again. The only real difference was, apart from that, was that you had Cunningham, I had Elijah Hollins.
Yep.
I won 1 out of 3. I'll take that.
Agree.
Are you making many changes right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
let me know your team. Reveal it for me. I'll add it on.
I feel like we've almost just got to start with a copy paste of yours because I feel like it's going to be. I can't imagine we're so different. Oh, wow. I can't believe I'm seeing one name there, though.
There's a couple of spicy ones.
Wow. Okay.
Let's go from the back. What's your back line? Your back 6 or 7?
I would agree with that back 6.
Yep. So for the audio listeners, that is Kemp, Wiedering, Newman, Boyd, McGovern, Sard.
Yep.
You want to look at the midfield now?
Yeah, no issues with Akers, Cripps, and Hollands on that line.
Yep. And then to round out the rest of the midfield, it'll be De Koning, Walsh, Chera. Forward line, maybe a couple of interesting picks at all. I think Harry and Charlie pick themselves. How are you seeing the other 4?
Yep, I think Elijah and Fogarty also pick themselves easily there.
Yep. Wow. And then how are you liking your small forwards?
Yeah, well, Zed Williams it has to be number 1 for me. And when I did do this exercise, it was Motlop.
Beautiful. So there we go. And now who rounds out your bench and your subs? Because my team there, I do have Zach Williams. He's on my bench. I simply had Cottrell in that forward line where you had him. You had Zach Williams instead. So what's your bench looking like?
I can't believe that you don't have Cowan here. I would have him as my 7th defender.
It was my biggest snub for me.
Yeah. George Hewitt definitely deserves a place.
What are the last couple?
I'm going to go to my spreadsheet. Wow, I can't believe. I think put Chincotta in for now, please.
Ooh,
I think the role is too valuable.
Yep. And does a Cottrell get in there? Does a Jack Martin get in as that last spot? Are you probably potentially looking at a bit more of a forward? Does Kennedy get in there?
Jack
Fantasia,
Martin,
does he snag in Jack Martin? Beautiful. And your sub, is that where Matty Cottrell snags in?
It feels crazy to say, it's got to be Doherty there.
Oh, you haven't even forgotten about Sam Doherty.
I know. Yeah, I guess the difference is it's the pit, it's the ruck situation. I think, like we spoke about last week, the way that the game has changed to implementing a tagger, it feels too valuable. And the way that we could do it every week is so different. And Chincotta's just the guy for that for me.
No, I do really like it. And I think we're very similar And this is where the differences are. And I'm not sold on this either, which is the crazy thing. Because my first worry was, God, I really want Lockie Cowan in this team structurally.
Yep.
I think he works out well, but I couldn't find a spot for Doherty otherwise. And I floated this in the team selection show. We did a bit of a mid-season special looking at the best 23. And I sort of floated saying, look, not to be super harsh on a guy like Doc, but we don't know what player we're necessarily getting back.
Yep.
He wasn't amazing when he was playing. He was good, and he was a key cog for certain reasons. But as far as did he have a specific role that we really needed? Was he better than others in that role? It was kind of a 50-50 thing. I want him in that team for so many reasons, but I don't know what kind of guy we're getting back after a third ACL. He's 30. What kind of player are we getting? I think he's probably going to be in the defense when we get him back. Has he lost a little bit of pace? Do we need a smarter head down there? So I've got him as that seventh that can kind of rotate. But I think a guy like Lockie Cowan makes a lot of sense, and it's hard for me to argue against it. And really, the other difference I don't know if I can still trust Jack Martin right now. And with Zach Williams playing the way he does, I like the idea of the flexibility of a Cottrell over that with a Jack Martin as a sub. And then I've still got the two rucks, which is maybe controversial. I think looking at that Essendon game, it still worries me, the second ruck, seeing Cripps and Kennedy at key moments of that third quarter, be our ruckman, give away free kicks, give away territory, and the ball, it worries me right now.
Yep.
Is that maybe where a guy like a Silvani finds his spot in the team next year? How are you kind of seeing that second ruck and the ruck situation? Because I know that's a big key talking point week in, week out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you wonder if it's something that Mackay can improve on. I wonder if is there a scenario where he just becomes a quality kind of second ruck option? Because, man, the team is just so different with Pitnet in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've seen TDK play his best footy without him.
I agree. And I believe we will need to have De Koning as more of the number one if Pito does come into the team. How we do that will be very interesting, knowing that...
That's such a tough sell.
Yeah, De Koning was so much more of a forward when Pitt was in the ruck, but
yeah,
there's still moments where we clearly are going to need, like if De Koning's off the ground because he's resting, and Harry's in the ruck, can we survive with just Charlie as our only key forward? It feels like that's not the best thing either, and that's why there's that worry for me at this stage. But equally, I'm not sold either way. I want De Koning to be our main ruck when we need him. But I think we've still seen in big moments in the Melbourne game, we needed Pito. In finals last season, when it gets really contested, Pito's in there. And I'm weirdly of this opinion that when we play finals footy, we need both ruckmen, because I just think the game gets so more contested. But yeah, I'm going to need clear evidence that the rest of the team is absolutely fine when we're one rucking and De Koning is not on ground.
I think I could be convinced of Pitt being in the team, being our number one, like working well if he's the number one guy. I don't think I could be convinced on him being the second ruckman. And like in this scenario, I just think I feel like we were already worried about his output as the number one guy. Because it's like, well, he's not doing anything for the 30% that TDK's in the ruck. Well, now if it's 30%, say, him rucking, just as TDK's backup, just the guys that we don't have in this team because he's in there, it's like, are we going to get more out of Pito doing 30% rucking and then whatever else he does, the rest of it, sitting on the bench, versus Chincotta? It's a tough sell. But I also agree with you that on the finals, the big games, it feels good to have that big body there. So I get that.
And it's funny because, Pitt's first couple of games back this year, we were saying, oh my God, how good's this? He's getting the ball at ground level. Our clearance work has been amazing. We still haven't seen him with, McGovern, Sard, Fogarty all in the team with the 2 rucks. So I need to see it before I'm ruling anything out. But I do agree with you that, yeah, it's just that difficult thing. We lose a little bit either way. So which one are you more happy with? And when I am saying, just for clarity's sake, if De Koning's a bit more of the important number one, it's more 60-40 than it is 70-30, because I don't think he can have Pitto just playing 30%. I don't think that's right. But when the game's there to be won, I think we're definitely wanting De Koning in there with that big clearances he started to throw into his game. Now, on the best 23, on all of this, one of the big questions that we were asked all week, because I know people are probably screaming, we got some DMs, where are the listener questions? Do you not care about us? We absolutely care. We are listening. But 90% of all questions were basically asking, what changes are you making once some fit players come back? Once we get these guys back. So let's have a look at it, Lockie. This is what I want to take a look at. I have thrown up our current 22-23 that played against Essendon. And I've put up on the right-hand side a few players that are probably close to the best team that are either injured or a guy like a Motlop that he's basically ready to go now. So looking at this, Chera, Cottrell, Cunningham, Martin, Pitternet, Motlop. If these guys are all fit right now this week, maybe you've already, shown your hand and told us what changes you're making through your best 23. But who comes in, and most importantly, who comes out of the current team? That's the fun part.
For sure.
If they're all fit this week, what changes are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, Chera's definitely got to be the first selected out of that group. Come straight back in. And I think Jack Carroll is the obvious one to go out, I think.
Okay, Carroll out.
Chera
comes in. I do like that.
That's the most obvious one. I'll let you take the next one.
Yes, I will say that for now, at least. Oh, this is tough. This is actually really, really tough to decide.
I think Durden out makes sense that you're going to have one of those guys above him.
Like he's definitely out.
It's tough, isn't it?
I'm going to be so harsh. I'm going to basically move always to the sub for now, and Motlop comes in for Durden, which is very tough. But I think Motlop is in our best team right now. Do any of the others make it? Does Cottrell, does Cunningham, does Martin, does Pitto? Do these guys break into this team?
I think Martin is the one, if you want to make the case. Like, just think back to that Melbourne game.
It was great.
Right?
Talent-wise.
It's so hard to get the injury stuff out of your head, but I just think that we would rather him than Kennedy in this team.
Yeah. I do like it. I do really like it. And that is, there we go. Jack Martin in, Matt Kennedy out. Where do you kind of see Matt Kennedy's role at this stage? Because there's been some injuries to a guy like a Chera who's out, injuries around the place to other positions. He's kind of been thrown in everywhere. Where do you see his role for the back half of this season? You've just said that he probably makes way if guys like Motlop and Martin are available, and guys like Chera as well. Is there any room for him to be in this team? I know you at the start of the season were talking about Hewitt's spot up for grabs.
Yep.
Has that changed at all?
I think as much as so many things have changed, things also just stay the same. And when Vossi came in, Kennedy was trying to get a spot as an inside mid, and I think that remains his best position. And with our best 22, he's just not in there. So I'm sure he's going to feature in the back half of this season. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays in the Geelong game, but he's just a bit of an everything kind of guy now, isn't he? Like, as in, he just goes where he has to.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that. He's probably going to play because I'm sure there's going to be an injury somewhere, and his versatility allows him to be that. He's probably hurt by a guy like Chincotta almost taking that midfield role from him. If Kennedy isn't that tagger, if he's not the inside mid ahead of Cripps and Hewitt,
Yeah,
if Walshy and Chera fit, if Hollands is playing the way he has
exactly.
been in the midfield, there's probably not that spot for him. You lose one of them. I think he is. Last thing I'll throw out with this is probably the sub spot. I don't love always as the sub, so I'm going to take him out. Is this where Cottrell
He's the perfect
or Cunningham or Kennedy, does any of those take that spot?
Yeah, Cottrell's just the perfect sub, isn't he? We said it. We said it last year. It still remains true.
Yeah. I think that would be my ins and outs as well. So I'm very happy to go with that. So that means that from our current team, Chera in for Carroll, Motlop in for Durden, Martin in for Kennedy, and then Cottrell ends up being the sub with always making way. Let us know if you agree or disagree. Who would you have coming in? Who would you have coming out? Because at some stage, these players, fingers crossed, are all fit and there's a spot for them to take. It's very stiff on those guys that are being removed from this team because they've all served a purpose and played to the best of their abilities. But, you know, when everyone's fit and firing, there are tough decisions to make, unfortunately. But that's just what has to happen. So before we wrap this episode up, there's a couple of things to quickly go through. It wouldn't be a mid-season review without having a bit of a list analysis. Very early look. Now, this time last year, guys like a Fogarty probably weren't staying on the list. That's how much things can change, Lockie. So let me just change this for you. Let's add this to the screen right now and let's zoom this bad boy in for you. These are the players that are currently out of contract, and I want you to Spitfire say resign, delist, or trade for each one. Jack Carroll.
Resign.
Resign. I absolutely agree. Why do you think he should be someone that is re-signed?
I think age mixed with we saw some signs at the start of this year. He's just another one of those guys where he has such a specific position that he excels at, and like there's just no room for that right now. With that said, injuries happen, development happens. I can see a world where he's a great inside mid for us in 2 years.
Probably hasn't taken the steps that we hope just yet. But when you're looking at our midfield, looking at the depth, we've lost guys like Setterfield, like Paddy Dow, haven't necessarily replaced them. We know we're getting in, the Camporelli twins, even though, one's a bit more of an outside, one's a bit more inside. They're going to be 18. They're not going to be ready to go just yet. He's that next guy right now with a Matt Kennedy. I think we're going to need to at least keep him around for the next couple of years and hope that he does take that step. But if not, he can at least be a positive depth piece. Elijah Hollands is an easy one. Obviously, re-signing.
Build him a statue, mate.
Very simple. Jack Martin, contentious. Very, very contentious. What are you doing?
Well, you look at some of the names later on in this list, and it makes me err towards re-sign.
I think it's a tentative re-sign for me as well.
Tentative.
I am hoping that we're going in with a bit more of a plan around. We have someone else if Jack Martin is not fit. Give him low money, not a big deal. Now that, Will Hayward is re-signed, there's probably not that clear Jack Martin replacement out there on the market. I know a guy like Ben Ainsworth has been thrown around, but I don't think he's perfect for that. If Jack Martin wants to stay, if he doesn't want a lot of money,
exactly.
I think there can be a spot for him, but I don't want to be at this stage next year where we're upset that he's not fit. I want him to be that cherry on the cake. If he's ready to go, beautiful. If not, it's a 1 year prove it deal. But I don't know. Yeah. If there's a list spot for him and the quality, he's probably that only one of the injured crop that I'm willing to take one more year with.
We both had him as best 23 with the whole list fit. I think that's enough to to get him green.
Yeah. Caleb
Not
Marchbank, he's an
not him
unrestricted
though.
free agent. Is he
Yeah.
being delisted?
Unfortunately so.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. David Cunningham, another
Yeah, he's
unrestricted
interesting.
free agent. Are you taking one more punt with him? One more year? What do you think?
I know we're taking so much nuance out of this, obviously, but like David Cunningham, like trading him, for example. Like who do you think would be worth more in a trade, him or Fisher?
Fisher, by far.
Exactly. So, which
I don't think
basically
you get. I
means
don't
you're
think
not
you
getting
get
anything.
anything for Cunningham. It feels like Paddy Dow-esque, where you're like, but even Paddy Dow has more value. But like a guy where you're going, like we're almost gonna have to delist you because we're not gonna get anything for you. Yeah.
It feels wrong. It feels
Sorry, Liam
wrong.
Stocker is that kind of player to be really rude, where it's like there's just no value. Like to get you to another club, if there is one interested, we can't facilitate a trade. We don't want you, so yeah. I'm delisting him at this stage. I just don't see it now.
There has to be turnover, and
yeah. When guys like Cottrell, Elijah Hollands have definitely taken over that spot, because this is the thing to make this a bit more nuanced for you. We have one too many players on the list due to us bringing in a guy like Cooper Lord in the mid-season with the injuries, which means we want to bring in 4 players, let's say, because that's what they said for using 4 draft picks. So if we're bringing in 4 players plus, let's say, 1 as a trade, that means 5 are coming in plus Matt Duffy has to make his way in.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean we have to get rid of 7 players to bring in 6? I think that we're probably not going to use all 4, and it's probably going to be more like 5, which means fair few players have to leave.
Sure.
So I think a guy like Cunningham and Marchbank have to make way. So with that being said, Matt Carroll.
Yeah.
We brought him in. He's been injured. Have not seen anything of him really. He's definitely going to be a bit more long term. Do you think they spent a draft pick on him, a rookie draft pick? Do you think they're going to give him more time?
I think they will.
I agree. I think so. It'd have surprised me if they didn't. Same with Cooper Lord. They brought him in with the provision of, keep him for more than half a season.
Yeah.
Sam Durden, unrestricted free agent. Another key defender like a Marchbank, losing a bit of depth if we get rid of him, but nowhere near our best team.
No, that's the scenario like you mentioned before. Like I'm comfortable delisting. Caveat that we have to be bringing in the depth if we do that.
Yeah, I agree. Hudson O'Keefe.
Huddo. I just know absolutely nothing about where he's at.
I think we definitely re-sign him. I think he showed a lot of promise so far. You need a developing ruckman on your list. And unfortunately, I'll skip straight to him. It's Alex Murkov because, he's done. He hasn't shown anything. Can no longer be on the rookie list either. He'd have to be upgraded to the senior list. Hudson O'Keefe's our developing ruckman. You don't keep more than 2 on the list. I think that's pretty simple. And then we've got a guy like Dom Aquay.
Yeah. I mean, your finger's on the pulse more with the 2s, but it doesn't seem possible that he's going to break through, right?
No. Has not shown enough, and another one that would need to go onto the senior list, which when you're having to basically when you pick up guys in the national draft, they go straight on your senior list. So if we're going to use those picks, makes it difficult. There's no real spots for him. And then Matty Owies.
Interesting, isn't he?
Does he become a bit of trade bait? I know there's been interest from other clubs by the media have been talking about it. Is he a definite re-sign? Is he someone you see if you can get something for? Where are you looking at Matty Owies? Because we talk about this and he's very stiff because he's available. He kicks goals every single week. Yet every time we do a best 22, we do a depth chart, we knock him straight out without much thinking about it. Is that harsh on a guy like Matty Owies? Are we unfairly rating him?
It's so incredibly hard. Like, I don't know whether we can get past the whole, like, more mature age brought in rookie scenario with him. Like, is that label just like over his head. I
Mm.
don't know. I mean, it's definitely not a D list,
Mm.
but I definitely would be open to moving him.
Mm.
Or you
I'd
think he
love
is a
to.
D list?
No, okay. I'm not delisting. I am
Oh, I thought that was
re-signing
the
or
face you were pulling.
trading. No, no, no.
Yeah.
I'm going re-sign just for the. I think that consistency and being fit every single week is massive. Guys like Corey Durden maybe haven't come on as much right now. Fantasia, we're not getting anything out of him. We've had injuries galore elsewhere. The problem with Matty O is his ceiling. He hasn't really progressed much from what we've seen probably over the last 2 years. He'll kick a goal a week for you is kind of what I see from a Matty Owies with the
Yeah.
occasional week where he can kick a couple. That's good to have on your list. I think weirdly, and maybe this is what I want to get onto next, just quickly talking about if there's anyone on the list that you see as potential trade bait that isn't like this. I think Corey Durden's probably the only one who's
Mm,
probably listed right now that I can really say maybe you look to move
mm-hmm.
if you can get something for him. He's down so much in the pecking order, hasn't
Yeah.
really shown a lot. If an Adelaide team are interested,
Hmm.
can you get a little something and make a deal happen? He's probably really the only other player that's signed right now that I'd
Yeah.
say, yeah, I'd be okay with moving him on.
Yep. Yeah, that's sensible.
Do you
Yep.
have any other trade bait players
I
at
don't
all?
think so, right? I don't think
Hmm,
so.
it's tough.
With the
Not a good
landscape
spot.
of what you get back from players and trades, like it so rarely is something that you get excited about.
Hmm.
What you get back.
Yes. No, I agree. And
So
it'd probably be if we need a list spot, if it facilitates some sort of move, if we need picks for
yeah,
the Camperelli twins. He's definitely a keep unless you need to move him. He's probably the only one I'd be happy to move on. Looking at it the opposite
makes
way,
sense.
I want at least a name from you right now, Lockie. Let's
No,
go early. Is
and
there someone or a type of player, the typewriter? You love that segment from back in the day. Is there someone that you can see
been a
who
while.
maybe is available? Are they out of contract? Are they a free agent that you think
Wow.
fits the bill of a player we need? Or if you don't have anyone, what position do you think we need to bring in by the end of the season that right now, midway point of 2024, you think is a bit of a list hole right now that would allow us to maybe win the flag or
Hmm.
just get a much better team headed into the 2025 season?
I think going back to our discussion before regarding Pito, I guess that's the spot for me. Is the best chance of us winning a flag next year another forward that can kick goals, be a marking option, and we have more faith as being the second ruckman? Do you think that structure works?
It'd be interesting because
And
I think
actually,
we
if I can
definitely,
if I can
yeah.
dive in, I'm going to say you do think it works because in your best 22 you've got Pito, and I'm talking about someone that can ruck a little worse than Pito, but be much better around the ground and in the forward line.
I think my only concern in it is when we've seen De Koning, I guess, forward. I know he's more the ruck than the forward, but does that work with with Charlie and Harry? Does it get a little too crowded? Are we better when there's more space with the two? So I'm just not sure who that player is, and if they are actually out there that
Yeah.
can be a little bit of a mid-size marking option inside 50, but also take some rucks. Like, I don't know. Is there a player in the AFL that currently applies that role really well with other key forwards in the team?
Good
Like,
question.
if we were to bring in a Will Hayward, I don't think we'd be wanting to use him in the ruck. So
No.
I don't
Fair.
know if that player is there and if it truly works. That's my only concern. But I agree that trying to find it I'd be very interested in that.
But that's what we're talking about. If we're saying that we need to have two rucks and Harry isn't one of them, and we agree that TDK needs to be the guy doing more than 50% ruck time, then surely there's something better out there than Pito.
Or is the answer simply Harry is the second ruck, but we bring in
Maybe
someone
it
that we
is.
feel confident enough to rely on in the forward line? Therefore,
Exactly.
Harry can be in there. Maybe that's the scope, that the person we're bringing in doesn't need to ruck. They just need to
True.
be another forward option.
Which makes
maybe
Hayward
that's
a
it.
great pick.
Yes.
Rip up the
We don't have him.
contract.
Can't get him. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to look at guys that are
Mm.
available, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of those. Like, I know that like Ben Ainsworth gets thrown around as a restricted free agent. That's a bit more of an option inside 50, can go higher up on the ground. I don't mind it, and I wouldn't mind him on the list, but I worry he just gets thrown in with the rest of the group we have, where you're not really a forward, you're not really a midfielder. Is he better than the guys we already have? Maybe, but I don't think it's enough that. And maybe I'll get proven to be wrong. And if he comes to the club, I'm obviously going to be excited about it. But out of all the players that you could bring in, it feels like he's someone you're bringing in for the sake of making a move.
Yeah.
Because he's not ridiculously tall. You know what I mean? I feel like I'd rather Silvani in the team. Yeah, I'd rather Silvani in the team than Ainsworth right now. Yeah, like
179 centimeters.
Yeah.
He feels taller. Yeah.
How tall?
179.
Yeah, he's short. Like I don't want this, but I'd almost rather a Cam Zurhaar than a Ainsworth. But I don't want Cam Zurhaar.
No,
but he's more of the kind of player I think can have an impact. So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you throw something at it hasn't been great this year, but like Tim Membry as a unrestricted free agent for a year, just so he doesn't have to play
so he
us?
can't
I don't know.
it.
Is that kind of what you're trying to do, or do you go down the other thing where you're looking at small forwards? I know, Tyson Stengel has been thrown out there. He'd probably cost too much. Do we have money if we're throwing money at a Hayward? Do you look at another guy that I've thrown out there as you probably might not even know this guy because that's not judging your footy knowledge. He's very niche. He hasn't even played an AFL game yet, but Jacob Constanti from Sydney. He was a small, real pressure forward in under 18. I really liked him. And I think in our forward line, he ticks the box of that Fogarty style, real nuggety player. But I think he has the upside of kicking goals that maybe if Fogarty doesn't, that I'm looking as a 2 to 3 year replacement of that in your forward line. That's an option as a bargain basement get, but I'm not sure that there is that player that is truly available. And the only other position I think that we probably will need to look at, now maybe we just do this in the draft and we say that that's fine, but key defender, if we're delisting a fair few like you mentioned, do we need to find another Sam Durden, like another Lewis Young style player where we know that there's no ceiling on them. The floor isn't amazing, but it's better for 1 or 2 years than a fresh 18-year-old that maybe doesn't have the body to go. So I'll throw out a couple of random names for you. He's probably going to re-sign, but he's out of contract, is Dougal Howard. Josh Battle would probably be more breaking into your actual team, unrestricted free agent, but it would probably cost too much. And I'm not sure you're wanting to kill McGovern out of the team. So I don't know. Do you look at a guy like a Jed Buslinger who is out of contract? He's young, but he's developing a bit more. He's an interceptor, which suits our needs a little bit more rather than just your fresh 18-year-old. I think that Buslinger is probably the style of player I would be wanting to dangle a carrot and see if he's someone you could bring across.
I like it. It's a harder sell back there because, like you said, we'd struggle to find a key that we could bring in, I think, that I would want in ahead of our current guys, which is a hard sell when you try to recruit someone.
And I think that's probably the toughest thing right now when you're looking at our depth chart, you're looking at the list. If you're bringing in someone right now, they're either a young player that you think can develop over the next few years that maybe didn't get a chance somewhere, like maybe an Elijah Holland style player, where they're not guaranteed first-team football, but if they apply themselves, they've got it with a high ceiling, or they're going to have to be an absolute outright gun, which, looking at those players that are available, there's not really any of them have all kind of re-signed, which makes me really think that once Hayward was off a chance to get him, we've really gone, okay, I think it's draft then, because unless something crazy happens, like a Charlie Cameron becomes available, you're probably not looking to make too many moves anywhere.
It's true. It's true.
So, to finish this episode, one last question. And I need
All right.
this answer from Lockie, but I need it most importantly from everyone watching and listening here. What is the most important thing heading in to the second half of this season? One thing that gets us that flag, Lockie. What is it?
No, well, I don't want to give, like, obviously, this isn't my answer. Health is obviously the most important thing. Goes without saying. Completely goes without saying. So I think the thing that might be a bit more interesting is I think we need to continue to experiment over these next 10 games. I think it would be a shame if, as we've sat here today, we've kind of applauded the things that we've tried that have worked really well. It would be a big shame if in 10 weeks before finals we go, well, remember those moves that we did? They were great then. They haven't been as amazing, and we haven't really tried anything else. We haven't learned anything else about the team. I think for us to compete, we need to keep kind of adding to that bow over the next 10.
It's funny because I really agree with what you're saying, but my answer completely contradicts what you've just said. Because mine is continuity. And part of that is literally just, as you're saying, staying healthy. And I think you can do both. Where I'm seeing the continuity is, I think we just need to know what we have and be able to continue to play the same players to a degree and know that we've got the consistency of output, the continuity and the chemistry is building amongst the playing group. And come finals time, we know our best team. We know who we need to be playing everywhere. Now, you can still experiment a little bit. You can still play with some roles. Winning will allow you to do that. But I think it goes to the continuity sense of, I want to be sitting here come finals time knowing that we're not having to invent the wheel then. We've done everything. Everything is working.
Completely agree.
There is no position on the field like right now where we're going, small forward. Do we still know what the best thing is there? Do we know what the best... Is it 2 rucks? Is it 1 ruck? I want to be secure in knowing that we've tried everything. We know what works. We're confident in the team. So I think they work well together. But that is going to wrap up our mid-season review. It's been a fun episode to reflect. It's a lot more positive than it was this time last year. So hopefully the good times can continue. And we will be back again this week for another episode. There will be a preview episode of the Geelong game. We'll be building the game up, talking about what we want to see. All the regular stuff will be available in video form on Blue Abroad Wednesday, 8 p.m. And of course, wherever you listen to your podcast, they will be there. So make sure you follow. Make sure you subscribe to stay up to date. You never miss an episode. You don't have to worry. Are we doing 1? Are we doing 2? What day is this coming out? If you subscribe and follow, it'll be there every single time. It makes it easier for you and lets us know that you are enjoying the content and you want to stay up to date every single week. But that is going to finish this one. Up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.